has gone into an update and I can't seem to stop it. So hopefully it's not going to mess things up too bad. If I could just get a quick little sound check from someone. If you can let me know you can hear me all right. Okay, we're good. Thanks, Ray. All right, well, today is Friday. Hooray, Friday. And I had a special guest for you for today's Rabbit Hole Friday, but I don't see that he's arrived yet. Stinker. So we'll just give him a couple of minutes. Otherwise, we will delve into another indicator. Nope, I don't see him. All right, one moment here. I will just shoot him a quick Skype. All right. Well, let's see. What shall we use for a backup here today? I know. I'll be a little bit rusty on it, but why don't we take a look at the ADX and the DMI, two very powerful trading algorithms. Both developed by Wells Wilder. He's one of these mathematician guys that is well entrenched in the trading world. Here, let's start with ADX. Oh, my computer's still doing something here. All right, so we got the ADX. I'll take the Bollinger Suite off of here for today. All right, let's start here with the ADX. I know Floyd, I think, likes to use the ADX a lot. But what he does is he'll watch it on a 30-second chart. That's one thing we'll talk about one day as well, are time-based charts. You might use a time-based chart in conjunction with your mean Renko charts and your DTS and Raptor. So here I've got the ADX on my Falcon chart. The ADX is a fairly simple indicator. Well, not so simple to calculate, but certainly pretty simple to interpret. ADX stands for Average Directional Index. And what it does is it tries to quantify when a market is trending and when it is not trending. So through a series of calculations, and you can discover all those on the internet, when the ADX is rising, the market is said to be developing a trend. When the ADX is falling, it's considered that the trend may be softening. Not always, but generally speaking. When the ADX is very low, there does not tend to be any kind of trend. The ADX does plot on a scale from 0 to 100, an algorithmic scale, so it's never going to exceed 100. You've probably noticed this purple line through here. which is set at 25. That's kind of the accepted threshold for whether or not a market is trending or not. So if, generally speaking, if the ADX is below 25, the market is said to be non-trending. If it is above 25, it is said to be trending. So pretty simple. The big deal with ADX is to remember it is non-directional. So it's measuring market pressure, not market direction. You can see right here, ADX is rising, the market is going down, but it is rising because the trend is developing, the trend is strong. One of the simplest ways to trade ADX is simply to take the first signal after it breaches the 25 line. So you tend to ignore signals so long as the market is below the 25 zone, because it tends to classify that region as a sideways market. Now notice there were opportunities in here. There was a nice little trend change signal here, but most of the other opportunities were, well, they're kind of nail biters, really. This buy signal eventually working out, but you would have had to take a whole lot of heat on the trade. But if you just start looking for signals after the ADX breaches that 25 zone, you'll usually be in a better position. And now you have to remember the ADX, like most other indicators, is a lagging indicator. So you need to delay or take into account the delay. So this signal here, I've got my ADX set at the default 14. You know, if you go back 14 bars, or pardon me, if you go ahead 14 bars, this is the ADX producing this signal, if that makes sense. But at any rate, you can see that if you wait for the ADX to breach and then you look for a signal, you'll tend to at least have a little bit more momentum in your favor. And you can see if the ADX breaches and you don't get a signal, well then, no harm, no foul. You can speed up the sensitivity of the ADX a little bit by reducing the period parameters. Let's reduce that, or by lowering the threshold. So instead of 25, we can maybe take it down to a 20. I think Floyd is running his at 15 on his 30-second chart, I think. And you can see how much more responsive this has made it. But don't forget, the key is not to introduce more signals. And the key is not to eliminate every poor signal, but rather to find a little bit of a balance between the two. See, here's the ADX with the faster parameters and our lower threshold. Okay, it breaches here. Here's the first signal, the buy signal, and well, that's that same one. We took a lot of heat and eventually went higher. But it also introduces some conflict, because we would have looked at this buy signal and then we come right back, the ADX still above 25, and now we have a sell signal, but we're already long. So what do you do? So I would not suggest, well, I would suggest playing with it, but not making it overly sensitive. In fact, out of the two, I would probably leave the parameters a little bit longer and maybe consider lowering the threshold a little bit from 25 to 20. And so you can see when the ADX is below here, the market's very, very sideways. And then when the ADX starts to rally, get above 20, well, we introduce a buy signal. And, well, we at least got enough out of that to find our profit objective. You're going to want to see the ADX make these little waves, especially when you're changing direction, because it won't always get low enough and produce one of these type zones. This little zone down here is something to look for. Just like when we're watching our charts and we see the sideways range and we see the rejection, we see the breakout, the retest, or the attempted breakout, the attempted retest, and then the rally. So it maybe is a little bit easier to interpret than purely watching what's going on the chart, but it does tend to tell you the same type of information. So here's that little swing low. Didn't quite get below, but you can see the result when it started to crest again or started to turn, and we introduced the sell signal and then the big reverse lower. And the trend continues until we get below the 20 zone, and then we come back out, we introduce another signal. So very simple, very reliable way of trying to stay on the right side of the market. Certainly something that may introduce a little bit more confidence in the signals that you're looking to take, right? Because, hey, let's face it, with a tool like well, actually, with any of the tools, if the market conditions are right, whether it's the Falcon, the Raptor, the Hawk, even the Eagle for that matter, we can produce a lot of signals, and sometimes we're left scratching our heads. Do I dare try that signal or not? Well, the ADX, a great little way to filter that out. Now, you may be asking yourself, or maybe not, what is the ADX based on? Well, let me tell you. The ADX is actually the average of the directional moving index. Now we have 3 different ones here. I'm not sure what the differences are. Let's experiment. As my computer catches up. All right, let's see. We've got the DMI. I don't think that's the one I want. No, the DM index, this is the one I want here, the DM. Huh. They used to, I'm probably missing something, but Ninja used to at least tell you what the differences between these were. But here, let's start with we'll load the DM. All right, so these red and blue lines, the average of these 2 lines, the difference between those 2 lines is what results in your ADX. The ADX is the average of your positive directional index and your negative directional index. Now the ADX and the DMI can be a little bit difficult to interpret when you first start looking at them, because, well, there is a little bit of a directional component introduced now. Like I said, what you're looking for is you're looking for the average, the ADX, to be increasing. The DMI lines give you an early indication of who is getting stronger. When the red line crosses over the blue line, the sellers are getting stronger. When the blue line crosses over the red line, the buyers are getting stronger. You're going to find some of your best signals will develop when your ADX line gets very low and your DMI lines cross above it. So it's very, very close here, but close enough. Remember, when you're looking at indicators like this, you can't be splitting hairs. You have to interpret, you got to step back and interpret the thing as a whole. So we have the blue line crossing the red line, the ADX very low. This should make you a little bit more bullish. So while we were looking at this sideways range here for some time, now we get a cross and we produce a signal, and we actually get a little bit of follow through. Let's take a look at another example. Here we're very, very sideways again, very congested. We got several crosses here. Here's a bullish cross, no signal. Bearish cross, no signal. Bullish cross. Oh, we did get a signal. Oh, this is that same one I keep going to. I'm going to show you how we can filter that out there in a moment. And then we get the bearish cross. It did get a little bit of follow through. And then we get ultimately the bullish cross and the ADX rising above the line. Okay, so how can you filter some of these things out? Well, again, let's reduce the threshold a little bit. All right, so now our trend threshold will be 20. And what you're looking for is you're looking for your lines to cross, and ideally we want to get above this 20 zone. Not only with the ADX, but with the directional line as well. Now notice only the dominant line is going to cross above. The other one is going to, it's actually almost the mirror image, is going to fall below. And these little hooks that form are very important, because what these hooks show you is essentially a test and a retest of the breakout. Now, whether there is a breakout occurring or not, there is a breakout occurring here on the indicator. So it may not necessarily mirror on your price chart. But what you like to see is you like to see a cross. So the lines cross. And then you like to see this little bit of a hook. Can be a big hook, can be a little hook. Once that hook is starting to develop, you should really start to pay attention. As the two lines get closer together, so long as they do not cross, the top line should remain dominant. So right now the top line is blue. That represents the buyers. That should remain dominant. We get a buy signal and we get some follow through. the lines cross. We come back, there's the hook. The red line stays above the blue line. That tells us that the sellers are remaining dominant. We produce a sell signal, and we get some very nice follow through. Let's see if we can find another example. Okay, this one's really drawn out, but here it is, and you'll get more comfortable with these as you get used to the indicator. So here's the cross, here's the pullback. Look at how strong the buyers are over the sellers. The wider these two lines get apart, the stronger the trend is that is developing. And you can see the ADX already reflecting that. But here's the signal. Here's a little bit of a pullback. Here's the signal that's developing during that pullback phase. And, you know, a lot of times you look at this type of signal real time and you think, oh my gosh, do the buyers really have anything left? Because it's been such a strong move up. Do they really have anything left to show? Well, yeah, they did. They had quite a bit left, actually. All right, let's see what's going on here real time now. Okay, so we had a strong, where's the open? Right here. 6:30, okay. So we have the lines cross just pre-market. Oh, actually a big pre-market move lower. They get all tangled up here again. The red line comes above. The ADX is rising. Here's the pullback. So here's the cross. The ADX, that's that greenish line, is starting to rise. Here's the pullback. The red line and blue lines do not cross. There's the next signal that develops. And look at that, very nice little follow through on that. If you were inclined to try to keep a runner in play, so long as your ADX is rising, you can probably try to keep that runner going. And then as you crest and it starts to decline, you could get your stops in a little bit tighter. Here's another cross. Here's the pullback. But look, the cross, the buyers were not able to stay above the sellers. That makes us a little bit suspect. Here's the cross now to the short side, right? The sellers, again, more aggressive. The ADX, there's so much momentum going on here. Remember, it's residual, right? This ADX that's right here is reflecting this range back here in the DMI. But even so, it's still showing us something interesting. The sellers appear to be getting stronger. Where's that hook? Oh, really? Oh, I haven't gotten a signal yet, but I'm wondering if these tiny little hooks are all we're going to get. No, there it is. There's the hook. Oh, and the sellers lost it. So now there's another hook, another hook, another hook, another hook. And you note the ADX is starting to fall and we're below 20 again. So at this point, we could say, well, there's not that much of a trend going on. Let's see, we got a hook. Oh, look at this. So we got ourselves a hook. ADX is still low, but I'm concentrating a little bit more right now on the DMI. So I've got a trend change signal developing. I know the ADX will turn up if this trend starts to pick up some momentum. Here now is my signal to short. So I could short from here. Note the DMI starting to hook up. The ADX a little bit flat at this point, but I've got a huge downtrend as well, right? So I should favor a move to the short side. And here we go, the ADX starting to increase. My original stop, well, ideally 2 swings back, at least up here. And are they not going to give me any here? Oh, see, we've crossed again. So a little bit more bullishness coming in. So I could get a little bit more aggressive with my stops at this point. Oh, another little cross, and we're flip-flopping here a little bit. There we go. Getting a little bit of follow through. I could probably get my trade somewhere near break even at this point. Note that the trend has disappeared. Anything we had resembling a trend previously is gone. The ADX very, very low. And so we're getting a lot of back and forth. Okay, this is favorable. We get an attempted crossover. That's rejected. Oh, now the DMI also getting below here. And it stopped us out at break even. Okay, but that's all right. It didn't cost us anything. We gave the trade a chance. And now we're getting a little bit more bullish. Waiting on that hook. There's the hook. Okay, and here now the signal is going to coincide with a late filter entry signal. Now, counter trend trades. You always need to be leery of a counter trend trade. But here it is. Here's our late filter entry signal. So you can look to enter here. You know, original stops should go down here. Yeah, see, they're starting to flinch. So I would probably get my stops in a little bit more aggressively at this point. And there we go. So we get tagged for a small loss. So the market's still a little bit sideways. You can see, like any indicator, it's not infallible. And I'll show you one more, and then I see Richard has made it. And we'll just get to you here in a second. And so, okay, now we're going to get a move here to the short side. Now, this is more in tune with the overall trend. Here's another cross. Oop, stop it. Here's another cross. Here's another pullback and a rejection. Here now is the sell signal on the Falcon. And there we go. We get a little bit more follow through. All right. Well, I was really looking forward to messing with your minds this morning on our Rabbit Hole Friday. And so I invited Rich Friesen to join us. Richard is a trader slash psychologist. And hold on here a second, Richard. I'm going to see if I need to unmute you, or if you can unmute yourself.
It says I've been made the presenter. Close my
Yes,
screen.
and I can hear you.
Great. Excellent.
Well, welcome, Richard.
Well, thank you. I apologize for being late this morning. I overslept.
Overslept on a Friday?
I know. It's amazing. How are you, Eric?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good. I was just
Well
listening
rested?
for a bit to what you were saying, and what a wonderful gift to have that stream of consciousness to be able to share somebody's insights in real time. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, on Fridays, because the market, well, today it looks like we're actually developing a trend, but as you know, Fridays, the market can be all over the map. And so rather than chase our tail, we figured, well, let's delve into the different types of indicators and things that really can screw up your trading. And so we call that our Rabbit Hole Friday.
Wonderful.
And yeah, so, when people screw up their trading, a lot of times they need your help because you know how to straighten things out for them again.
Well, what I look at my job as kind of like a flashlight or an invitation for people to gain rapport with themselves and the markets. That everything a trader needs is already there. Everything that he or she has is in place. And what happens is that we get conflicts. We have old patterns of behaviors that served us when we didn't have many other choices. We have patterns of behaviors that serve us well in the real world, that we can impact the world in ways that with our personality and with certain behaviors we have. But the markets, when we come to them, they don't give a whatever about us. They don't care about our personal qualifications. They don't care about anything. So as a result, it's like, to be effective as a trader, or let me rephrase that, the more we step into a master trader's mindset, the more we operate from that mindset, the more the market is going to reward us. So then the question becomes is, what is the master trader's mindset and how do we step into it?
And that is a great question. And you're not just blowing smoke. You traded professionally, and you had a crew, and you were on the Pacific Stock Exchange, was it? Or
Right.
remind me.
Yeah, I've traded on the CME. I've traded S&P futures and options on the floor of the CME. I've traded wheat and wheat options on the floor of the Board of Trade. I built a trading firm out on the options floor of the Pacific Exchange and also managed traders on the floor of the CBOE. So I got a wide range of experience. I've done that for almost 3 decades. And what was fascinating to me as I built my own trading firm was that some of the traders would take my methodology and start making money. Some of them made, just steady money. Others did really well. But there was about, 40% of them that would make a little, lose a little, make a little, lose a little, or do really well for a while and then give it all back. And it occurred to me, what is going on here? Same market, same methodology. What is the difference? And I was fortunate at that time in that my sister Wendy was a budding hypnotherapist, and I brought her in, and what we found was that the traders that were struggling, it was about their mindset. It wasn't the markets, it wasn't the strategies. It was old beliefs that they had, subconscious routines running, self-sabotage running. And one of the biggest, and we can get into this in a bit if there's interest, but we're not prepared for success.
Now, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because I can tell you from the coaching that I've done, I can see the self-sabotage. I know from personal experience, it's something that I've struggled with and even struggle with to this day. but probably the number one question I get from people is, Eric, I can do this in sim. How come I
Mm-hmm.
can't do it with real money?
Yeah, well, this is the real question. In fact, I'll tell you, how much time do we have here so I can kind of gauge
Oh, we
myself?
have as much time as you want.
Okay,
We normally run the room till 8 a.m. Pacific.
okay. So most of my clients are, half of them are offshore, and about half of them are scattered in the U.S. But I had one client that was in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he had that same problem. He says, I can trade sim successfully. I go live and something happens and I just can't do it. Or I've had clients who say, I can trade 1 through 5 lots easily and I have enough capital. I get up to 20, 30 lots and everything falls apart again. So it's the same phenomenon. So I went to visit him and he had his sim screen up and he's sitting back. We'll just call him George for now. And he was pointing out the markets. They're kind of slow. It's not my kind of market. And this is the kind of market. He described the kind of market that really worked well for him. Anyway, he says, okay, now it's starting to shape up. You see this pattern here. You see these things. Okay, this is my setup, but it didn't quite make it. You can see that, what I require is this, and it didn't happen in time. And we went through a couple more close setups and explained them to me. He was very relaxed. His voice was low. And he says, okay, here's a setup. And he took it. And he was a very short-term trader. And so 7 minutes later, like he was shorted out, he was stopped out. He says, that happens about 40 to 50% of the time. He says, and that's okay, because I generally get 3 or 4 to 1 on my winners. So we went a couple more, and then he got a couple of profitable trades. I said, okay, let's go live. So he changed the screens to live.
I
I
can see where
noticed
this
his,
is going.
yeah,
That's
his
why I'm
body,
laughing.
his body posture changed. He leaned forward. His jaw clenched. I could see his heart rate increase. And he looked at the screen and says, okay, now, okay, we're going to look for the patterns, but you got to watch out. He says, they're just going to, you probably don't use sailor language here, but they're just going to
That's right.
do
Kids don't
me.
usually watch this.
Yeah, they're just going to do me this morning. That's the risk. And then I noticed his breathing got shallow and he got tighter, his jaw got tighter. And so he made a trade and lost and he started to swear. Uh, and he says, blah, 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 blah. And it was just getting more wound up. So one of the
Mm.
things that I do as a coach that I don't think anybody else does is I have them exaggerate that. So I say, okay, notice your physiology right now. What is it? It says my chest is really tight, my breathing's shallow, my heart rate's up, my jaw is clenched, my leg is bouncing up and down. So I go, okay, let's exaggerate. Bounce that leg more, tighten that chest more, tighten the chest more, tighten the jaw more. And I'm doing this as I'm talking to you right now. I'm tightening the jaw. I'm tightening it. Okay, tighter. On a scale of 1 to 10, how intense is it? It's an 8. What thought do you need to bring it up to a 10? And he said, my dad doesn't approve of me. Okay, my dad doesn't approve of me, take it up to a 10. And he thought that thought, bring it up to a 10. I said, how old do you feel? Right now, how old do you feel? And he said, I'm 7.
Wow.
So I'm going to relax now and take a breath. So I said, 7. What's going on with little George when he's 7? I brought her home a report card. My dad said, I will never make it.
Wow.
So what happens here is that we have these subconscious patterns that often come from when we were very young, and they repeat themselves. We call them NEMs, or neural metastructures. There's no blame. There's no shame in this. We all have them. In fact, I could go into a story about my own discoveries just of yesterday of a pattern that I hadn't unearthed for a while. It was triggered by a family member, and wow, that was amazing to see that happen. But we have these old patterns, and as a result, when we go live, when it matters. In other words, I'll ask a client, we'll go tick by tick. I do live coaching on Zoom where we share screens, and so it
Hmm.
doesn't matter where they are. And they'll say, okay, it's going up. Oh, good, going up. Or it's going down. Oh my God. Okay, they're going to stop me out.
Yeah.
So every tick is a referendum on either their skills,
Hmm.
their behaviors, their beliefs, or even their identity.
Yeah.
Every tick is a referendum on something that's important to them. It's a referendum on their dream. Can I make it as a trader? It's a referendum on their abilities. It's approval from their parents, from their spouse, from their peers. It's dreams of wealth and success. If somebody's been a failure through many different parts of their lives and they haven't had the success they want, they come to trading. They say, I can do this. I don't have to depend on anybody else. And they so long to succeed. They so long to be whole and okay as a person that every tick matters. So again, what we're talking about is bringing all this really important stuff to trading, when in fact trading is a statistical game where you bring an edge. That's it.
Hmm.
But it's so difficult when we have these patterns running. So when I work with clients, we get first we look at what the behaviors that don't serve them. We look at the behaviors that do. Then we look to move to the new behaviors. Inevitably, we will have these old patterns that come up. And then we look at what is the trader's mindset, the master trader's mindset. I often ask people, so, okay, what would you like? Well, I'd like to keep my stops. I'd like to stop losing money. I'd like to get rich. Okay,
Yeah.
so what is the master trader's mindset? What is it going to step into? Well, I'm going to not blow my stops. I'll do all my entries. Okay, and what is the master trader's mindset? Well, I'm going to, they don't have a clear picture often of what it is like to be a master trader. In other words,
Mhm.
there's no place to go for their brain to go. There's no way to get support from all the parts of themselves because they don't have a clear, safe picture. So one of the things we do is we create what that master trader's mindset is like, what it feels like viscerally, so people can own it safely and all parts of themselves can support it.
So, are you talking like self visualization every day,
Mhm.
every way? I'm getting better and better, repeated 100 times,
Yeah,
ad nauseum.
that's it. I'm so glad you brought that up because that's an interesting. We have this manifestations. Every day I'm getting better. I'm a master trader, and those can either be helpful or harmful. And they're harmful when we don't resolve the underlying issues, but we're just kind of like praying to the atmosphere. It's like, oh, please make this better, and we are either unwilling or unable to tap into that master trader's mindset and all those old processes. For some people, it can be helpful when they're just ready to change. They're ready to be done with their old behaviors, and they just need reminders to step into the mindset. But you can have all the manifestations you want, but if you don't have a clear picture of what it's like to be a master trader, and by that I mean the mental processes, how you think, how you breathe, what your physiology is like, how you manage emotions, what do you do with those? So once you get a clear picture of that, and that feels better, and it gets you to your goal, then you can start to step into it. But what happens inevitably is as they start to step into it, there are objections from different parts of themselves, from old parts of themselves, and and you're not going to believe this, and nobody out there is going to believe this, but success triggers survival mechanisms that say, whoa, we know how to handle struggle, but we don't know how to handle success. I know that, in fact, I'm doing a a course, an online course that is also where we're meeting for 8 weeks called Conversations with Money. And this is for traders and non-traders. But we're looking at being able to step into success and be able to incorporate the survival mechanisms that prevent it.
So you're talking the fight or flight response, are you?
It's
Or
there's
it's
that.
more than,
That is an immediate
yeah.
reaction. But what I'm talking about is that I'm trying to think of a personal example here.
Well, while you're mulling on that,
Hmm.
I, it brings to mind one of the fellows in our room who's done very well for himself, and
Hmm.
we'll call him Mark.
Hmm.
Well, Mark's actually his name, and I know he
Hmm.
won't mind. But Mark has a military background,
Hmm.
and I wonder if that hasn't served him a little bit better. Not just the discipline, but just the fact that, hey, you're used to having people shoot at you from time to time, and you don't necessarily take it personally. Although he may differ on that viewpoint. I've never been shot at, so I can't say for sure. But I you know, just hearing that success triggers survival mechanisms,
Hmm.
that is really deep. That kind of goes to the core of a lot of problems.
If I look, I I look at the equity curve of my clients, and about half of them have this grind upwards, slow grind upwards, and then they have a losing trade, something gets triggered, and boom, they give it back in 1 or 2 or 3 trades or 1 or 2 or 3 days,
Hmm.
and then they start back up. So then we have to ask ourselves, what is the process at the top that shifts and changes? And that's really important. And that's what one of the things we work on is the old what we call the names, the neural metastructures, the old process, the subconscious, that at some point triggers the need to go back to struggle.
Huh. Wow. You're right, Richard. I've never heard that from anyone, and I do delve into the psychology of trading from time to time, but I've never
Mhm.
heard anyone address that issue. That's quite fascinating.
Yeah, for me, it's the elephant in the room, and that's why I've got this course that I created. I did a beta course about a year ago, and doing it starting Tuesday. We meet for 8 weeks, and
Oh,
we look at these issues. And one particular issue that's difficult for traders. I mean, if I'm a doctor and I'm saving patients' lives and making their lives better, oh my gosh, there is just a tremendous amount of personal satisfaction. And the money you make is like a certificate of appreciation. These people
mhm.
who really appreciate the fact that you're saving their lives and making their lives better. So for traders, there's nobody on the other side of what we're doing that says, geez, Mark, you're doing a great job. Thank you. I really appreciate this. And so as a result, some of our social consciousness, some of our views around conflicts about money and wealth, we have a huge cultural negative attitude developing and growing around the 1% wealth, capitalism, free markets, and the fair share and social justice. And the clients that I get, I don't know how they manage to do this, but I haven't had one asshole client in 3 or 4 years. I mean, they're just good people and they want to
Yeah,
do good,
yeah,
but they haven't quite got their arms around. If I just trade 2 hours a day and I make, more than enough money to live and to take care of the family and savings and retirement, um, part of them says that's not right. Many
yeah,
traders have a work ethic. It's especially us older people who grow up with depression era parents. You got to work hard. You got to put your nose to the grindstone. It's got to be a struggle in order to be worthwhile. I mean, if you just make money easily, I mean, that's not right. That's not
yeah.
fair.
I have heard that before, and you have just nailed a big nail on the head. You are so right, and I try to tell people in the room too, because there's so many signals that come your way during the day. It's not a production line. You got to get out
Mm-hmm.
of that production line mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your moments, capitalize correctly. If the trade works, okay. If it doesn't work, well, make sure you capped your risk so you didn't blow yourself up.
Mm-hmm. And I have a mental model for this. And a lot of traders come with a one pie model. There's only so much money in the world, and it's not distributed right. And we've got social justice to change it. Um, every time you make money, you're taking money from another trader. If you make money easily, you are disrespecting your parents that worked hard to make the money. You have all these voices in your head. So I change that and I make a switch, and the shift is, and how we reframe it is that the markets have been going on for eons, from the fish markets in Crete, on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been market makers forever. And there's a reason for this, that the markets themselves, if trading wasn't contributing, then it wouldn't exist for such a long time. And so I think about it like it's an information system. If I think the market is overbought and I go short, what I'm and the market then goes lower, even if it's on a 5 second trade or a 5 minute trade or 5 hour or 5 day or 5 year trade, I am nudging the market towards value. And the market is saying, Rich, thank you so much. You moved the market towards value. And here is your payment for doing that. If, on the other hand, I see the market's overbought and I sell it, and the market then goes higher, there's a fresh round of buying coming in, the market says, oh, Rich, I'm so sorry, but you moved the market away from value. You tried to move the market down a bit, but really the value was higher. So that's okay. I don't mind you doing that, Rich, but you got to pay me for the bad information you gave me.
That is very clever. I like that. That's
Right.
very
So
good.
really, we're in the information business, and that's why trading can be a profitable career for the rest of your life and for eons, because we are actually getting paid to give the market good information. What satisfaction that is to give the market good information. And that means that traders can now feel really good about themselves. They can feel great that they're giving the market good information.
I
So
feel better just hearing about it.
I know it's a lifelong career that is valuable, and you're making contributions. So really, if you think about it, you're in the information business.
That that is really good, Richard. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I don't know if you have a screen share or anything going on. And before we get too late in the morning here, you mentioned your course that you have going on. You want to
Hmm.
tell everybody a little bit more about that
Sure.
and maybe share a link?
Sure. I
And you can do
will.
screen share, of course, if you have anything that you'd like to show.
Okay. Let me.
We're
Yeah.
kind
Let
of
me.
doing this off the cuff here this morning, folks.
Yeah. So yeah.
Richard and I just spoke a few days ago.
Let me bring up what we call our mind metrics. Um, Take me a second. Sorry, I was late this morning.
No, it's
Um,
fine.
Client files, traders, templates.
It's not like I'm going to run out of indicators to show people anytime soon.
Okay. That's true. Okay. So now the question is, show my screen. Should give me a choice. I got
Yes, there
two
you go.
screens.
Okay, we've got your
Okay.
desktop.
Which screen do you see? A black one or
Uh,
one with?
The one with all the icons on it. We've got
Oh,
your homepage.
okay. So now, do you see the
Yes, we've got the Mind Metrics template.
great? So this is what we do. I'm going to, let's see, where is, there it is. Okay, we've got, I'm going to hide some columns here so that we can bring things together. Hide columns, there we go. Okay, so this is one of the things that I do, is that we look at all the issues we have, like if I'm looking under the previous behaviors, moving stops and targets, letting setups go, usually from fear of losing money, tight muscles and breathing when trading, loss upsets my appetite and I get fearful, and so forth. And then what we do is we look at the positive intent of these. What these parts, these behaviors, these beliefs, what is their positive intent? Again, we don't berate ourselves. If there's one word I use, it's rapport with ourselves and rapport with the market. So we look at the positive intent of these. Then on the left column, we look at the desired outcomes of the behavioral issues that we have. And then what we can do is, if we're trading for a day, we can do the drop down and we can change the color. And so I can see as a coach immediately where the issues are, and we can see how well people are doing from red to yellow to light green to dark green. We also have a mastermind group and make commitments to the mastermind group for really small steps. On Monday between 9 and 12 a.m., I am going to execute every trade my strategy, gives me. We have our routines and what we call our set scores, and this is our internal processes, our sensations, emotions, thoughts. So here you can see how where you are emotionally and where you are physiologically in your thinking process, and what that translates down to is you can see its impact on your P&L. So in the mastermind groups and in the private coaching and in our online Compass course, this is all part of it so that we can really get down to what the behaviors are.
So do you think it's important that a trader remain detached? I get a lot of people asking, I want to trade like a machine. In fact, a lot of people ask, do you have a trading machine? Do you have a black box system? Do
Yeah,
you think?
that's,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
This is really a great question because a lot of traders see their emotional they see their emotions as problems because their emotions screw them up time and time again. And so the word detached is really an important word. How do I detach from my emotions? And the challenge there is that we can't move forward without emotions. There are people who've had parts of their brain damaged, the emotional center, or people who they can temporarily paralyze parts of their brains. And without our emotional center, we can't decide whether to pick up a blue pen or a black pen. That our emotions are an integral part of our decisions. So for me, in my current model, it's not can we detach from our emotions, but can we be aware of them first? Can we accept them secondly? And thirdly, can we allow them to be with love and concern and compassion? But what's happening here is, like, if you look at, if I were to be in a room and said, boo, suddenly everybody would jump. That's a very sudden reaction. If we look at our emotional reactions, they're a little bit slower. But what if we were able to create a higher self, a self that was able to notice our emotions, accept them, and still stay in our master trader's mindset? So for me, it's not an issue of detachment. It's awareness and acceptance and allowing those emotions to play out, but move constantly. And this is a journey for the rest of my life, is to move to that higher and higher mindset.
Because we tie ourselves directly to our trades, right? If we're making money, we're a good person. If we're losing money, we're a bad person. So
Right.
How do we get away from that then? Is it through that master trader mindset that you're referring to?
Yeah, first we have what we call the golden keys, and that the first one is awareness. It's awareness that I'm berating myself. It's awareness that I'm angry at myself. It's awareness of all the different parts and voices that I have. And the second is acceptance. I am who I am. I'm okay as I am. And I can accept all those parts of myself. I have positive intent for myself. And so my job now is to see, what do I want? How do I stop myself? And what do I need to get to where I want to go? But this is a process of first creating rapport with what is, and then bringing that rapport and bringing those parts of ourselves and those voices together so that we can actually move forward to a goal.
Wow, Richard, you would have saved me almost 5 years off my learning curve.
Yeah.
It's funny, well, it's funny, it's not funny. I guess these are issues that we all struggle with because, you've hit some spots that I can definitely relate to.
Yeah. So you asked about the conversation with money. I just brought up the
Mm-hmm.
registration page. It's $247. And again, we work on the core issues of being success. And as I mentioned, no trader ever has come to me, and I'm waiting for it, to say, Rich, you know what my biggest problem is? I My subconscious just can't handle success, or I'm afraid of success. Um, would you help me with that? Every trader, every client I've had thinks that, oh man, being wealthy will solve my problems. Oh, success, that's what I want. I'm so eager to be there. And I say, okay, if success is what you want, what are you going to give up with success? What are you afraid of? Oh, I'm not afraid of anything. Oh, I don't, geez, success, I wouldn't give up anything. And so I'm very gentle and very patient. We keep going, and stuff comes up like one of my traders. He was doing okay. He was making 125, $150,000 for a long period of time every year, and it turned out that he really loved and respected his father. And the subconscious part of him said, if you make more than your father, you're disrespecting all his hard work and everything he's done for you. So
Mm.
as a result, he got stuck at 150,000 a year. Another trader I had, his he had a very severely handicapped brother, and his mom was single mom. And if he made money, he knew his mom would come to him for support for his brother, and he had always resented the attention his mom gave his brother, and he was kind of alone all his life. So if he made money, it would bring all that back. So as a result, he just, when he got to a certain cap, he just, didn't
Stop making money. Yeah.
stop. He stopped making money. What this course is about is stepping into a really harmonious future of success. And the agendas are, we meet for 8 weeks. We do a welcome and best practices, the golden keys, which I mentioned: awareness, acceptance, and then action, creating new behaviors that serve us better. We do, what does money think about you? And this is to discover our internal parts. It's an exercise that is really powerful, where we put on 3 chairs and you step into money and say what it thinks about you. And it's amazing the stuff that comes out. We
Huh.
talk about money as certificates of appreciation, cultural belief in capital, that we're seeing a huge sea change in cultural beliefs around money and success.
Yeah.
We look at shame and blame that some of us have been brought up to. We look at the split of wealth and poverty in the world and the conflicts that brings to our success. And then the final is the wrap up, delivering value with rapport. How we bring internal rapport to ourselves, loving our communities, and loving the markets in the world, and loving our success.
Wow. Great stuff. And can you still join this course?
Yes, it's
Oh,
starting
fantastic.
Tuesday, and I do have a few seats left.
Well,
I
that's
can
great.
see. Can I put a link in the?
Yeah, in the chat window,
Yeah,
or people, you can make note of it here at the top of the page as well. Richard's got his page
yeah. Let me see
displayed.
if I can. I wasn't quite
Is it
prepared
on
for
your
this.
Mind Muscles page?
Yeah, that's true. If we just go to, that's a good idea. Just go to mindmusclesfortraders.com
I can put that in.
and yeah,
Oh, no, you'll have to put it in the chat window. Oh, no, here I go. Here we go. Okay, we'll send that out to everybody.
yeah. And then in the upper right-hand corner is the course and the details. Good idea. I wasn't prepared to do any sales this morning. I thought it
Yeah,
would be
well,
just a
that's okay.
conversation. So,
Well, it's such valuable stuff. And it's funny, Mark writes here, as first sergeant in the Army, one of the things I was exposed to was master resiliency training for 4 years.
mhm.
Sounds a similar flavor to Rich's training. That training has probably helped me in my trading and life in general, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So
Oh,
there you
that
go, folks. You can spend 4 years in the Army, or you can spend a few sessions with Richard.
Mark, I'd just like to give Mark an appreciation for what he said. I've had clients who Navy SEALs or special ops, and do we have time for a short story?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so this trader comes to me. He's been special ops on the ground, behind the lines, in very difficult situations. Um, CIA is my guess. He wouldn't say. Um, Shot at, shoots people, the whole bit. And he comes to trading and he can't keep his stops. He doubles down. He trades impulsively. He's got to make it. He's got to prove to himself that he can do it. There's a lot of underlying psychological issues there, but his trading is just an absolute mess. And so I said, okay, so you're special ops, you're behind the lines, and there's a young guy, and he's got his pistol out, and he's so nervous, he's shaking. He sees something move and he starts shooting at it, revealing your position. What would you do? Well, I won't tell you what he said he would do.
we
And
can we can guess, yeah.
I said, you are that young guy when it comes to trading. You are doing the same thing. And it like hit him with a brick on the forehead. And he said, oh my God, you're right, Rich. That's me when it comes to trading.
Hmm.
So what we did is we took all his abilities as a special ops guy, all the training and whatever, and moved it to his trading. So we went through this mantra in the morning, this special routine. We associated in his brain that he's now going into the field behind the lines, and discipline and creating, following the plan and doing what he needs to do just shifted his life almost immediately because he already had those abilities like Mark has. And Mark, I really appreciate what Mark has said, is that he's taken all that and he so appreciates that time um, that he can bring to trading. So my client just needed to step into that space in his mind that was already there. And once he did that, his trading started to improve dramatically. Now, of course, he still slipped back into the old mindset. There were still low triggers. And that's a continual process for all our life. I mean, I just discovered a trigger I had yesterday I hadn't realized for years because it brought up from a family member. Um, but it's a joyful becomes a joyful process, rather than saying, "Oh, Rich, God, you're over 70 years old. What the heck are you getting triggered for?
Hmm.
You're supposed to be the guru here."
Yeah.
What I say is fascinating. Wow, isn't this interesting? Here's an old name, an old process that I was not aware of. And that acceptance, that awareness and acceptance makes such a difference. And I so invite everyone that's listening to allow it to be okay to be aware of yourself as you are and to accept that and to start developing rapport with yourself and all your parts because out of that becomes a beautiful, exquisite energy and trading ability.
Richard, you kind of touched a nerve there too, because I remember when I was young, like 9, 10, 11 years old, you're a kid, you make mistakes, and your go-to was always, well, I'm only human, humans make mistakes. And yet somehow, when you grow up, it's like you're not allowed to make mistakes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's up with that? You're
Mm-hmm.
still human, you're still allowed to make mistakes. Why is it we have such a hard time giving ourselves permission to make a mistake when we're
Well,
grown-ups?
yeah, part of it is a language problem. The word mistake.
Hmm.
Ooh, I mean, I think about mistakes and my stomach just tightens just a little bit. Ooh, made a mistake.
Hmm.
If, on the other hand, life is just giving us continually feedback and we love the feedback, we just love, the world telling us what's real and what isn't, what works and what isn't. All of a sudden, that language shift can make a big difference. What if there were no mistakes? What if it was just feedback from the universe giving us constant incremental corrections and teaching us how the world works? Wow.
Yeah.
What if, like I've got some grandkids and I've got a 11-month-old grandson and he's wobbling on his feet. And I just saw a video of him just the first few steps and then plop on his butt.
Hmm.
He didn't say, "Oh my God, I just made a mistake. Shoot, does this mean I'm worthy? Does this mean I'm not a whole person? Oh my God, my life is ruined. I made a mistake."
Yeah.
He's just getting feed. He touches everything. He
Hmm.
he moves things. He he climbs things. I mean, everything is, I want real world feedback. I want to engage in the world and get more feedback. I'm curious about everything. His He does not have the concept of mistakes in his mind at all. He
No.
does not have the concept of, am I a valuable human being? I mean, my grandson and daughter-in-law, or my son and daughter-in-law, they just love their kids. They get lots of just loves and physical attention, and he lives in a world that is safe and wonderful. And as a result of that, he can explore the world and get feedback. And he doesn't doubt himself or berate himself with
Yeah.
feedback. And if we can move in that direction and develop that kind of eagerness to engage in the world that he is, what a wonderful gift that is to ourselves and to the world.
Wow. Yeah, that you're so right. It's wow. What else can I say?
Yeah,
No, great stuff, Richard. Great stuff.
yeah,
Well, if anybody has any questions for Richard,
yeah, I would love that.
it is, yeah, fire away. It is Friday, so we'll probably button things up here before the top of the hour. But I do encourage you to check out Richard's offerings. I know he's helped me on the side from time to time, and it's always great just talking to you, Richard. You have such great insight because you've been a trader. You know where traders come from. You know the frustrations and the struggles. So it's
Yeah,
always good talking to you.
thank you, Eric. Yeah, any questions or comments? I'd love to to see how, because I've been kind of just talking to space out there, and I might much prefer to have conversations and co-create the conversation. So if anybody has any comments, pushback, I especially enjoy disagreements or different points of view, because again, that's how I test my world, like that little baby. That's how I find out things. That's how I get new ideas. And sometimes out of pushback, some of the gems that I've learned come out of those conversations.
Here's a question for you. You remember way back the whole turtle traders
Mm,
idea, Richard Dennis and Eckhart saying trader this the question, are traders made or born? Do you think
hmm
anybody can be a trader, or is it a learnable skill, or do you have to inherit certain abilities to be a successful trader?
Theoretically, anything that I can do, you can do. If it's learnable, anybody can learn it. The challenge is that some of us have much more issues to clean up, and for some, that road is longer and more difficult. If I look at when I built my trading firm, there was a trader named Tyson who the typical process is you clerk for me for about a year or 2 years, and eventually I capitalize you and give you a badge. But after 6 months of clerking, he was just so easy and he seemed to just be so relaxed. I capitalized him, gave him a badge. He was tall. He walked into the pit. He made friends easily. Um, I tended to have to fight for my spot in the pit because I wasn't as personal as he was.
You're not as personable as you are now.
Right. And he started making money from day one and never looked back. And he didn't have any problem with wealth and super success. But he was the exception. He was well loved when he brought up. He didn't have a lot of internal voices conflict. He liked himself. He was in rapport with himself in the markets. And all that stuff just flowed easily. And that just really wasn't the exception. Myself included, and I could go into a lot of stories about, in fact, the first trading I did was on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I worked for an option arbitrage firm, Chicago Research and Trading, and they put me, the first day I'd ever been on a floor, they put me right in the middle of the S&P 500 pit. And back then it was like 300 guys in it. It was just packed. Wow. And I didn't know hand signals, didn't know anything. And I was trading 100 and 200 lots to arbitrage or to hedge option delta positions. So they pulled me out of there because obviously I wasn't doing very good. And they put me in the options on the S&P futures pit. It was, just a few guys there. It was more intellectual. And my trainer there said, "Rich, you are the worst trainee I have ever had."
Sorry for laughing, but it's just, I think we've all been there.
And he was right. I was confused. I was disoriented. I was a philosophy major. I didn't have math or engineering skills. I tended to be a loner. I grew up a loner. A lot of my life was fantasy life. I didn't have as much social skills. And especially around aggressiveness. Oh my gosh, I just wasn't aggressive.
I mean, no aggressiveness in the S&P pit.
Yes, exactly. But what I did was I said, I'm going to make this work. And so I got a picture of me with trading cards in my jacket. They had these kind of stiff cardboard cards, like 3 inches by 5 inches maybe. And rather than writing trades on them, I wrote everything that I did. That's interesting. I almost used the word mistake here. Every bit of feedback of behaviors that didn't work well for me. And after a couple of years, I had a stack of about a foot cards with tiny print on both sides. And eventually those became a manual for my traders. And I was determined to make it, and with my personality and how I traded. And I got to go here pretty soon. My wife just reminded me that we've got a brunch that we've got to leave for.
Sure.
But I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to have a conversation. It's complimentary to talk about what you're doing. If there's any way I can help you, it's rich@mindmuscles.com. Send me an email and I'll send you my calendar link so that you can spend a little time. I'm really, Eric, I so appreciate what you're doing for traders. You've always struck me as you're just so present. You're just so available and so transparent. And I think this is a real gift to your traders. And so I've always appreciated what you've done and the work that we've done together. And if I can help out any traders here and maybe even just a simple exercise or point them in the right direction, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, well, you're just as generous with your time and input, Richard, and we all appreciate it. And yeah, go have your brunch, and if you give me the change presenter button.
Okay,
wait,
so
I can do it. I made myself the presenter. Here we go.
okay, great. Okay, well, you take care, and everybody. Love to interact with you, get a conversation going. If there's anything I can do, and Eric, really appreciate what you're doing. And let's do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Richard. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye. Wow, that Rich Friesen, and you should feel free to take advantage of his courses. And like I said, he has a lot of interesting free materials. You can see Richard really knows his stuff. And hey, success is good, and he's definitely one to help point you in the right direction. All right, everyone. On that note, I think we're going to button up shop here for the morning. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I will catch up with you again on Monday. We'll talk to you then. Bye for now.